reports and an analysis of that market, concerned with where we are today as well as any outlook that we are looking at going forward, is what are those supply and demand factors. And that's important for the grain market, it's important for the cattle market, but it's not the most important thing in either one of those markets. The most important factor today is the overall economy. Until we get that situation settled down, until we remove that great degree of fear that is associated with the investment community broadly, we will not trade supply and demand fundamentals. When those markets settle down, when we see investor confidence starting to return to the financial community generally, then we'll trade supply and demand fundamentals again. But don't ever forget that the economy, that fear that is still present in that broader financial market environment, is still the main driver. I'm looking at today's presentation primarily from the standpoint of grains, where our demand is still strong. And that comes from our two biggest demand factors in corn that I'm going to talk about primarily today, and that's feed and fuel. And fuel, of course, has been a great deal of concern over the last year and a half or so, because our ethanol industry has been in such dire financial straits. They've been losing money over all these plants that they've built to meet the ethanol standards that we built into federal policy. And so as they have established these plants, they've come online, they've been losing money. That doesn't mean, of course, that that industry is going to go away. Because this summer we started seeing headlines like this starting to pop up. And that's no big surprise given the need that these companies have for the ethanol we're producing. As of late summer, those three oil companies, Valero, Marathon, and Sunoco, owned 7% of the ethanol capacity in the United States. And that's only going to go up as players like Exxon and some of the others get involved as well. But at the time I put this slide together, they owned 7%. When Valero Energy went up into the Midwest and bought the ethanol production capacity of Verison. Verison had gone bankrupt, one of the biggest ethanol producers in the country. They put their plants on the auction block. Valero went up there and bought those plants for 25 cents on the dollar. Supply right now on the grain side is adequate, but just barely. It's certainly not ample. It's way, way short of being burdensome. We're going to have enough corn, it looks like at this point, to get us through this season. But we're still facing a very, very tight demand situation as we move forward. But most of all, never forget, all it takes is one event that undermines that investor confidence, that sense of financial security that we're just beginning to get some glimmer of hope again, to undermine all of these factors once more. And we're not trading supply and demand fundamentals again, we're trading fear. And that doesn't matter if you're selling corn or cotton or cattle. It's still a factor of that economic uncertainty. This slide, I think, is very important in that it shows the depth of the economic recession that we're in today. And it's kind of a convoluted slide, but if you can note the four different lines, and I'm going to look at the green one first. The green one is a combination of all the world's economies. That's the percentage change in GDP on an annual basis going back to 1980. We hear the phrase multiple times every day, this is the worst recession since the Great Depression. This slide verifies that statement.